Well, welcome everybody. Larry Sigel with Iowa School Finance Information Services. Welcome to the ISFIS Special Topics webinar, a collective bargaining process for the digital age. With us today, we have David Goss from Collective Labor. We're going to do a couple of webinar reminders first. Just as always, use that question pane to pose questions, express any thinking you have. Now, the questions are confidential unless you select a chat to all, but you can also ask additional questions or provide examples about how things might work in your district. Always give the ability to suggest future webinar content, and let us know of any technical difficulties with your question pane. And as always, please update your email addresses as they change with Sean Gibson, especially after we start a new school year. I know some of your email providers have changed. So we are recording this webinar, so that will be available for viewing later. So our agenda for today is, and this is going to be a fairly short webinar, but is going to be talking about the collective bargaining process, how it currently works, ways we can think about enhancing that process, and a tool that David from Collective Labor is developing to help save that time and toil. And our ultimate goal involves both less and more. Less disagreements, less errors, less time, less hassle, and ultimately more transparency, more accountability, and more information. So that's going to be kind of what we're going to talk about today. Let's talk about some observations that I have about hassles that I've heard people express over the years about the bargaining process. Number one is, well, disagreement over the numbers, and you probably have all heard this. Yours numbers have us at 3.8, but there's no way we're over 3.5%. We've got disagreements over language, and in some cases I've heard this, well, we agreed to or, not and. Reporting of the settlement, how do we cost that out? I've heard that probably, this is for the business managers mostly out there. And then assembling and printing those individual contracts. If you've ever been in a situation by somebody finds an error on page 3 and you need to reprint all those contracts, you did save that merge file, right? And I do make that one kind of funny, but it is a process. I know that business managers just tear their hair out over getting those contracts in people's hands and making sure that they're correct. So what do we need? And if we were going to sit back and say what would make the collective bargaining process for both parties, both management and labor, better, it would be really having a place, a sandbox, for lack of a better term, of where we could bargain in. Something that handles the contract language and negotiation process and gives a tracking of all changes proposed by both sides. Gives an integration into a final contract without exchanging voluminous amounts of paper, retyping stuff, re-entering stuff, basically duplicating effort on both sides. Secondly, something that tracks the numbers, that both costs out proposals and ensures that numbers are correct and consistent. Third, that provides enhanced information to school districts and gives better information about what is happening right now around the state. Boy, wouldn't it be great if it just submit your TA form for you, and is able to adapt to local idiosyncrasies and practices. And we know that all of you in your bargaining process have something that's unique or special to your district. So any system that would want to do that needs to be both flexible and powerful enough to handle that. We want something that improves transparency and timeliness, and where the final product is easy for all stakeholders to see, and individual contracts are easy to produce, and also ensures the safety and security of the information. That's kind of, from what I've heard people talk about over the years, of what we'd want in that perfect system. So we've partnered with David Goss from Collective Labor to bring software to the Iowa School Marketplace. And David, you're on with us today. We've got over 50 districts here today, and we really appreciate everybody taking the time to hear this. David, why don't you tell people a little bit about your background?
First off, thank you very much, Larry, for having me on today. A little bit about my background. I worked for Preferred Capital, a company right outside of Indianapolis, after they merged with with a smaller company that I was working for. Worked for them for about 8 years, and they had me in their South Carolina office, where I met my wife. My wife was from Clarion, Iowa, and her father was the superintendent of schools at Clarion Goldfield, and we got talking about Iowa school finance. And while I was in grad school getting my MBA and talking about Iowa school finance, my father-in-law said, hey, why don't you call Larry about Iowa school finance, because I was writing a research paper on it at the time, and called Larry, and he actually gave me some great information for my research paper. Long story short, Iowa school finance really triggered something with me, and so I got hired at Howard-Winnesheet Community School District up in Northeast Iowa, and that's how I came to Iowa.
Well, that's great, David, and we always, as Iowans, we always appreciate people from other states who choose to live here because we all think it's a great state as well. Tell us a little bit. You mentioned some of your work experience, obviously, with Iowa schools and Iowa school finance. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about kind of what spurred you to get into this whole issue of collective bargaining and improving the process?
That's a great question. What originally, when I started at Howard Winnebago Community School District, we had a great superintendent who was very organized, knew collective bargaining inside and out, but it was really about the timeliness and the equality piece. And what I mean by equality is just seeing the situation or seeing collective bargaining from the other person's point of view, seeing it from the teacher's point of view when we were at the actual bargaining table. The second thing was simplicity. We were spending weeks printing off employee contracts, updating the master contract, filling out forms, sending them to ISB and ISEA, and then turning around once all those contracts were done and entering them into our payroll system so we could get our first payroll out in September. So my passion was really to take collective bargaining and actually simplify the process.
Yeah, and I think that time aspect is just absolutely critical when you're talking about how to make a better process, is really giving people those tools to do things that they're going to have to do one way or the other in a more efficient way, in a more thoughtful way. David, I also wanted to mention that you are an Iowa-based company focusing on the needs of Iowans.
That is correct. Our programmers and engineers are in Indianola, and it is great to be working for an Iowa-based company.
Well, David, why don't you talk about a little bit about what collective labor is and how it's going to work, and these next few slides are really what you're talking about today.
Yes, months to minutes is kind of our theme here for most of the presentation here today, and what we're really striving to do is take anything that you do in collective bargaining manually and automate it through our web-based software. So the first thing that you have to start off with is a robust employee database, and this is simply view and update employee profile information in real time. Also our costing calculator, and there's a unique situation at every school district. We realize that, and we have dynamically built it out so that it will handle those unique situations, but instantly see total package cost when adjustments are made. The master and employee contracts, view and edit the language changes that you need to make on either a master contract or on an employee contract, and each employee contract is immediately available for distribution once a tentative agreement is reached. So once that TA is reached, the data, the platform goes into the database, it looks at the employee updated profile, and it prints off your contracts for you immediately. No need to mail merge any documents whatsoever. Real-time data is available for benchmarking use. So what is all the school districts within a 30-mile radius, or all 3A school districts in the state of Iowa? What is, or how can we actually benchmark against those other school districts to make sure that we are not outside of the realm of possibility, or that we're not costing too high on a total package cost. So the last thing is the calculators. Contract language and documents are just a click away, just to really simplify that bargaining process. So let me go through a few of the system features and when these will actually be available. The employee database will be available, or is available now. The final salary schedules, printing off salary schedules, that is available now. The master contract piece will be live and available for any district to use on the 15th of the month, and so will the employee contracts, even though you will not need those until next spring. They are available now. The master calculator, it currently is dynamic and it works, but we're enhancing it a little bit more to make sure that it interacts with your salary schedules and your supplementals, and you can make live changes there. And the benchmarking feature, This will be very important as you go into January and you actually begin to benchmark against other school districts. That'll be available in December. And last is the report writer. These are the reports, the tentative agreement form that you send to ISEA, ISB, any other of those forms. That will be ready in March. So when you come to collectivelabor.com, you will simply see our homepage in the top right corner. As a client, you would simply log in at the top of the client login, and when you do log in, you will see a sign-in screen. And this is pretty much what we do is we assign permission levels. You can actually assign permission levels all the way down to the employee. So when the employee logs in, all they will see is just their employee screen. But you, as a superintendent or school business official, you will be able to see the entire platform because you're going to need to use all these different features. So whenever you do log in, you're going to see a listing of your employees, their folder numbers, their step, their lane, so just basic information. You can add a new employee. Employee just got hired. You can add a new employee, and you can also view their details. So here with Susan, we're actually going to open up Rhonda here. You can see everything about Rhonda. You can see her employee information, her folder number, her email address. You can even put in her mailing address, what union group she's a part of or what employee group, her contract start and end date, her hire date, which is important for, and also her wages and benefits. Exactly what are her wages and benefits. A neat feature that we just recently put in is adding supplementals. So you can actually add new supplementals. So if you have, Susan just became the, let me see here, the head girls golf, you can actually put that in, and now Rhonda here is now the head girls golf coach as well. So the system has a lot of dynamic features here. You can also add their mailing address if you need to mail their contracts to them. So all this employee information here in this employee information screen is available for you to edit or change at any time. So once you update it, you'll see here that all the information that we just placed into the edit screen has now updated for Rhonda. So going past that and is going into the master contract feature. And this is the one that I want to stop at because the employee data is very important that you get the employee data in there correctly because that's going to feed onto your employee contract and feed into your payroll system. But this feature here is your master contract feature, and that is tracking all changes that happen within the system. So it works very similar to Microsoft Word in that it's tracked changes, but this is where the sandbox comes in, is any change that David Goss inserts, I can see those changes, and when I submit or share those changes to your employee group, they can now see all of the changes that you have requested to be made to your master contract. The same goes for the employees. The employees can log in, the employees can make any language changes, and they can submit those language changes as well. So as you go through the process of bargaining, you can see who made the language change, the date that the language change was made, and the time. So if you ever get into a situation where you need to know exactly when a change was made, you can actually log into our system and see that flow of information.
And David, I think it's important to note that both sides, both management and labor, can have their own system or own proposed language that they don't share until they decide to share it with each other, correct?
That is correct. That's where the sandbox comes in. Until you actually share that information, it is only in your sandbox. So any language changes you're making, that is your document, and it will not, the other side will not see those language changes until you actually hit the share button.
So David, would you anticipate in bargaining that districts would go through and as they reached agreement would just click, accept change and then just go on to the next one and really facilitate the flow of the discussion till you only have those remaining items that you just can't agree on?
That's a great question. Yes, how our programmers have built it is that each section of the master contract can be TA'd. So both sides can agree to that section and move on to the next one. So you'll know what sections have been agreed to and what sections you actually still need to work on.
And now we've got the continuing contract up there.
Absolutely. So this is feeding from the employee database that we were showing just a few moments ago. So anything in a box is a dynamic feature, right? Your employee's name, what they teach, the year, any one of these dynamic features can be inserted into your employee contract. And this is the mail merge process. So as long as your employee database is correct, it'll automatically filter to here, and you will actually simply print off your employee contracts once you've reached a tentative agreement. So it makes it very simple.
And goodness sakes, if we have a mistake in one that we need to go fix, then we don't have to go find an old mail merge document and redo the mail merge. It actually does it on the fly, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You just go back to that employee's profile, open up their information, make the necessary change, and actually print new contracts for them, whether it's their teacher's contract, their supplemental contract, whatever contract you need to print. Yep, here we are at our district calculator, and a lot of you have seen a similar calculator, but on the left-hand side here we have the district calculator, and all you would simply do is open it up, and you could start to do proposals here. You can activate a step on the salary schedule and calculate that. You can go in and begin to add different dollar increases, $1,000 increase, and just to let you know to the left here, this is federal teacher aid money. That can be anything. It can be TSS, it can be longevity, whatever you need those to be dynamically. We actually build this calculator for your district. So then you go in and you begin to do the costing and actually calculate these proposals. And while you're calculating these, the other side cannot see what you're actually calculating. And that's the important thing, is you can continually do your proposals until you're ready to actually share, but in real time it's actually calculating it. And then once you share, it says here the calculations have been shared, so you are notified that the calculations have been shared with your employee group, and they now know what your total package increase that you're proposing would be.
So David, if I understand correctly, then a district could do a whole bunch of scenarios, a whole bunch of different proposals, look at those, and then only share the one that they feel is the most appropriate, correct?
That is correct. So, your employee group, they can do the same thing in their sandbox, and then you can actually see the gap. How far apart are we, in an actual dollar amount? So that's the great thing about this system. Then the next thing that the calculator does is once you've reached a tentative agreement, it updates your salary schedule. But on top of that, if you are bargaining and you need to actually change an index, our updated calculator will actually allow you to go in and change an index, change a longevity amount right there, and it'll actually make those changes and actually calculate the updated change. The last feature, or one of the last features here, is the benchmarking feature, and this pretty much shows everybody that is currently, and this is just an illustration, everybody that would be using the system hypothetically, their student count, their total salary, total insurance, total package increase with FICA and IPERS. And what you see in red there is, not to pick on Ballard, but we pick on them here. Ballard is in red. They are not currently using the system, but we still know what their student count is. And so what you can start to do with this benchmarking feature is say, hey, where is everybody else with their total package increase across the state?
Yeah, that's really neat. And also in the land of reducing workload, you've also got development in place to actually populate and create the TA form, correct?
That is correct. The data is in our database. All we have to do with our report writer feature that'll be available next March is to autofill everything in this tentative agreement form. So any other reports that need to be built, our programmers can definitely build it, but you're just simply querying your database, pulling this information out for the school district, inserting it so that you can send it right off. The last feature that we were just discussing a little bit more is the report writer feature. What reports do you need that you need to send to the state or you need to use internally? We'd be happy to build a suite of those reports for your district to use.
David, what's impressed me the most is just the flexibility with which you've approached the entire problem of collective bargaining in Iowa, and that's what really led as David approached us to see if we wanted to partner on this project was really the thing that really I found most attractive was the flexibility, the power, and improving all of the process that's associated with the collective bargaining process. As always, let us know if you have questions or comments, but this is really important that your input helps shape the final product, and we would love to put a focus group together, and we do it electronically. Nobody has to get in the car and drive, but if anybody's got an interest or wants to make a commitment to be part of the focus group, drop myself or David an email. We'll get that going over the next couple of weeks for a more in-depth demo so that we can take your input as it helps to shape the final development that they're going through. I think that David would probably agree with me that you probably view this as a work in progress right now rather than a completed finished product, but that's part of the power of getting in now.
That is correct, Larry. We're still developing, so the more feedback we get on feature sets or how it should look, benchmarking features, master calculator, any of those feature sets, we'd love to hear from school districts.
Our contact information is below on here, and you all know how to get a hold of me. Tracy is going to be our ISFIS contact specifically on this one. David, hey, thank you so much for sharing what you've done so far. I think it's really impressive, and I think it has the possibility to really streamline and improve the transparency and the information in the collective bargaining process.
Thank you very much, Larry, and thank you for having me on.
Have a great day, everybody. Have a good Labor Day weekend, and if you're traveling, please travel safe. Take care, everybody. Thank you for attending.